Oh, hi there. Ollie Anderson here. This is going to be a video about values. I'm a coach. Coaches love talking about values, and that's because values are so important. Like, if you know what your values are, you can translate them into action, or if you want to go even deeper, a sense of purpose, and your life is basically going to be in alignment with who you really are. So in this video, I'm basically going to show you a process that you can go through so that you can figure out what your values actually are. Because a lot of people are actually just running around on autopilot, living out values that aren't even theirs. They're just values that they picked up from society or from their parents or from the government or from aliens in outer space or whoever the hell it is. And so you might need to do a little bit of inner work, which sounds painful, but it isn't. A little bit of work, let's say, to figure out what you actually think and feel and value so that you can start to design things in a way that is going to make your life more real, you more aligned in general, and it's going to allow you to go deeper into experiencing the amazing feeling of being real because you'll have tapped into your realness and you'll be doing something with it instead of just running around on autopilot. So if that sounds good, keep watching this video because you're probably going to learn some stuff about yourself. And, you know, all human beings like to learn things about themselves. That's like one of our defining characteristics as a species. Here we go. So let's begin with a definition of what values even are. Like, it's one of these words that we've all heard. Values, values, values. It's all over the place. But what the hell are values anyway? So the simplest definition that I can come up with is that values are just things that matter to you. But when we say things, we actually mean abstract, intangible qualities. We're not talking about things like material things in the world, although you can value those things, but that doesn't mean that they are your values. Actually, your values are the intangible qualities behind the things. So let's say, for example, you're dreaming of getting a Lamborghini. Always use that example. Maybe subconsciously, I want to get a Lamborghini. I don't have one because I'm not rich. But anyway, let's say you want to get a Lamborghini. That is not one of your values. You can find Lamborghinis valuable, but your values are actually the thing behind your desire to get the Lamborghini. And if you dig into it, ask yourself why, it'll boil down to certain things like this. Freedom. You've got a picture in your head of you buzzing around in this Lamborghini, driving like a maniac and listening to Limp Bizkit. That's what I'd be doing. And that feeling of freedom that you envisage is actually the value that is pulling you in that direction. Maybe as you're driving around in this Lamborghini, people are going to be looking at you and they're going to think you're like an amazing, sexy, successful person. And there's a value there probably around status or feeling significant or something like that. And you could go on all day looking at the goal behind the goals, which is always value. And that is going to show you who you really are ultimately and what you're really looking for. Now, the important thing there is that when you understand it's not just about the surface level details of the things, but the abstract, intangible qualities that matter to you beneath the things that you think you are chasing, then you also have the added benefit of being able to detach from the external goal and to start building things on that real foundation of the inequalities that you're actually seeking. Because if you realize that, okay, by chasing this Lamborghini and listening to Limp Bizkit and blah, 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 I'm actually chasing freedom, well, you can still decide to keep chasing the Lamborghini if you want, or you can step back and you say, okay, right now I don't have enough money in my bank account to go out and buy a Lamborghini and listen to Limp Bizkit, but there are many other ways that I can bring freedom, my core value of freedom, into my life. And then you can make a list. You say, right, okay, I'm going to go fishing on the canal right now, or I'm going to go for a hike, or I'm going to quit my job just because why not? etc. You could go on forever. But the point is, if you understand the goal behind the goals, which is always a value-based thing, then the goal is still important, but you can be outcome independent in your approach towards it. And you can also realize that there are many, many other ways for you to get the things that are truly important in your life into your life. And that is why it's so important to understand what values are and how you can go about bringing them into your day-to-day existence. So the definition, just to keep this clear, is that they are intangible qualities or abstract qualities that matter to you and that are driving the goals that you are out there chasing. Let's keep going. This is getting interesting. So what we've basically learned so far in this incredible video is that our values are very important. That's kind of stating the obvious because, as I said, we all know values are important, but they're more important than we may think actually, because they're constantly driving the decisions that we make about our lives and what we want, the choices that we make about who we are, how we show up, the relationships we get in, the goals that we chase, blah, 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 blah. Values basically shape and color our whole lives. And so if we're not consciously aware of the values that we hold and the reasons behind the things that we're chasing and trying to bring into our lives, then we kind of risk making a life for ourselves that is not a true representation of who we really are and what's actually possible for us and our lives. Now, this comes down to something that I've said many times. This whole channel, if you don't know, my YouTube channel, is about growing real. If you put something real into your life, i.e. in this case, real values, then you're going to get something real out. If you put something unreal into your life, then you're going to get something unreal out. And we all want the real stuff, whether we know it or not, because if we feel restless, frustrated, depressed, like there's more to life, that we have a void, that we just, we feel empty or we need to rebel against the world, whatever it is, it means that we have been putting unreal values into our lives. And so the current state of our lives is quite unreal. And so if you want to make life feel deeper, if you want to make it feel like you are more connected to it, then you need to make sure that the values that are driving your life are actually yours. And that's why this is really important. So now I'm going to give you a little kind of overview about how you can figure out what your values are. You might need to stop the video and do some writing, or you could just watch the whole thing and then, you'll figure it out. But the point is, if you actually sit down and do this, if you've never done anything like this before, then you're going to be able to figure out what your values are, and then you can go start bringing the real stuff into your life by putting something real into it, instead of just running around on autopilot, filtering everything through the ego, and then getting something unreal. So let's start with some examples from somebody really interesting. In this case, me. My values, I have decided and determined after doing some of this work, are health. And so I try to exercise every day, do yoga, go hiking on weekends. That's one of my values. So I feel good when I do those things. Creativity, which is why in my coaching business, I work with a lot of creative people. And my podcast, Creative Status, is about the creative process because I just love creativity. So I need it in my life. And so that's why I've made some choices about what to do with my business, what my podcast should focus on. I find those things very satisfying now because my values are embodied. Freedom. If I don't have freedom, I go mad and I get depressed. And that is why I have my own business. I don't have some boss breathing down my neck, getting me to do spreadsheets and all that kind of bullshit that they make you do. That is the worst thing in the world for me. And so by realizing that that is my value and making choices around that value, I now feel good. It's actually amazing. Like, it's quite simple. You say to yourself, oh, okay, I value this. And then you start acting on it. Life improves. You can trust me because I've experienced this myself. So health, creativity, freedom, humor. I try to value humor because I like to think I'm an amusing person. But I don't know if I don't know. Like, there is a chance that I just think I'm being funny when actually I'm being annoying. Who knows? But it's one of my values, and it's why I don't take myself too seriously with these videos that I'm making here on YouTube or in anything else that I do. Because I think ultimately, life is just one big joke without a punchline. And so if you take it too seriously, you're always going to lapse into being unreal. And ultimately, that is why I say these stupid things in my videos. And I like to joke around with people in real life and have relationships where people can have banter and so on and so forth. Very important to me. Maybe you're a humorless individual. That's fine. Like, we don't all have to share the same values. That's one of the good things about values. They belong to us and we can define them as we choose to define them. That's an important point that I was actually going to make, but now's a good place to segue it in, which is that when you're defining your values, So in my case, the ones I've just shared, health, freedom, creativity, humor, although I said it in a different order originally. What those words mean to me, because these are my values, is important. If you say, well, actually, health doesn't mean doing yoga every day and going hiking, because if you do yoga every day, you're putting your body through too much, or I don't know, whatever bullshit thing someone might say, that's fine. But for me, doing yoga every day and going hiking embodies my value of health. That's what health means. Looking after myself to the greatest extent possible, my mind and my body, which is what yoga does. And then that's fine. Creativity means working on creative projects. Duh. It means being present enough to make my unconscious conscious and blah, blah, blah. I won't talk about that too much. But the point is, once you've understood the word, or once you've uncovered the word that encapsulates your value, well, the only definition that it really needs to meet is yours, because we're talking about our values. And so, there will be overlap between my definition and your definition, but the little nuances are the things that are going to make it truly yours. So that's something I'm going to throw out there. But anyway, there's some examples. And once you've figured out your own values, you need to define them on your own terms so you can truly make them yours. Let's figure out how you can do that. So if you find yourself on any kind of transformational journey in life, you're ultimately going to end up walking through 3 stages: awareness, acceptance, and action. This is something I talk about all the time because I use that in my coaching practice. Ultimately, awareness, acceptance, and action are going to take you from where you are now to where you want to be. And it's no different when it comes to your values and figuring out what they are and then translating them into action or a sense of purpose or whatever you want to do with them. Now, awareness is always the first starting point of these transformational journeys, because awareness ultimately just means asking yourself different questions. If you ask yourself different questions to what you usually do, then you're going to get insight and you're going to uncover some new truth or some reality that you may have been avoiding because of ego resistance or distortion or simple ignorance or whatever it is. And you're going to have a stronger foundation on which to build your life. And when it comes to values, it's exactly the same thing. If you want to take yourself through a values elicitation exercise, which is what coaches like to call these things, then it starts with simple questions. Although there are actually thousands of values elicitation exercises, I like to use 2 really simple questions, which are kind of related, but if you ask them and answer them honestly, and then reverse engineer the answers to figure out what values are embodied in said answers, you can actually learn a lot. So the 2 questions are basically the same question in 2 different ways. 1, when have you felt most alive or best in life? And 2, when have you felt least alive or worst in life? Now, answering both is recommended, but just for the sake of this video, I'll start with the first question. When have you felt best or most alive? In my case, a simple answer to that question, simple, is okay, I felt best and most alive when I'm out in nature hiking. I didn't mention it earlier, but nature is also one of my core values. But anyway, when I am out in nature hiking, I feel totally present, totally alive, totally connected to all of life around me. And I feel free. I feel totally free. And I'm also doing things which I feel like are making me healthier. And so just in that simple example of hiking in nature, 2 of my values become really clear. If I look at the experience, not the concept of it, of hiking, the experience. What do I feel in that moment? I feel free, I feel healthy, and I feel alive. And so if I can take that as being a benchmark for how I want to feel all the time, I can say, oh, okay, I value health, I value freedom. How else do I bring these values into my life when I'm not out there hiking? I'm just going about my day-to-day business or designing my lifestyle. Well, okay, I'm going to make sure I have freedom in my business, freedom in relationships, freedom. How do I bring that into my life? And so if you can answer those simple questions, one, the other, or both, then you can do the same thing. You can start to figure out what your values are. Now, if you need some inspiration, because obviously we're dealing with abstract concepts here, abstract qualities, well, I have a thing on my website. Just go to ollyanderson.co.uk/values. There's a big list of values there. Or if you want to take it up a notch I have a free course, a 7-day course called the 7-Day Personality Transplant System Shock for Realness and Life Purpose. Long ass title. The first module of that 7-day course is about death and how you can use your time to basically make sure that, how you can use value in your time, to make sure that you make real choices around your values. And the first exercise for day 1 of the course is about going through this big list of values and then prioritizing what yours are, so you can boil it down to your core 5 values. So you can do that, or you can answer those questions. Either way, you don't have to do loads of work. You just have to raise awareness, ask yourself the right questions, and then say, okay, these are my values. Now what am I going to do with them? Which is the next part of this video. So once you've figured out what your values are by asking yourself the right questions, raising awareness, or if you want to go deeper with a personality transplant, something like that, once you've done that, you need to actually accept the value and then take action on it. Awareness, acceptance, and action. It's always about these 3 things. Accepting your values means basically that you're going to commit to them. If you don't commit to them, then you're just going to kind of let the world push you around, and you're going to compromise on the quality of your lifestyle and all that kind of stuff. And you're not going to get the values that you need to be brought into your life on a consistent basis. So you need to accept them, which is about committing to them, basically saying, okay, this truly is my value, and so I'm going to do something with it. And then you need to take action. Taking action means that you change your values or translate your values into goals, basically. So let's keep it simple. If you value freedom, you realize you value freedom after going through this quick process I shared with you, and your life right now doesn't really have that much freedom because you've got a job that you don't like, and your relationship, for whatever reason, is kind of toxic or whatever it is, because in this imaginary example, you've got unhealthy boundaries, blah, blah, blah. You basically feel that there's no freedom in your life. Or let's take another example, creativity. You realize that you value creativity because the time you felt most alive was when you were painting a picture or something. And so you're like, okay, I need to bring more creativity into my life. But right now, there's lack of it. Once you've committed to that value, because you acknowledge, because of the awareness you rose, that it is a real part of who you are, you need to act on it and turn it into a goal. So all that means is you come up with something specific that you want to do with it. I remember the Lamborghini example right at the start. Maybe you think, okay, I want to bring more freedom into my life. My job sucks, so I'm going to quit my job. Right now, it might not be time to quit your job, although you can still put yourself on the path to eventually quitting if you're truly committed to that value. Instead, maybe a better thing to do right now is to find something like hiking or yoga or whatever it is. I'm just using my own examples because I'm so self-centered. Find something that is going to bring more freedom into your life until you're ready to quit your job. With creativity, maybe it just means you set yourself a goal, painting a picture at least once a week. Keep it simple. Like, none of this needs to be complicated, but the point is, the more that you accept those values and commit to them, the more likely you are to act on them once you've figured out what the goal looks like. And day by day, your life is going to become much more real because, as I said earlier in the video, real in, real out, unreal in, unreal out. And so if you start acting on the real stuff with real goals based around your values, then your life is going to become much better. So the final thing I want to say in this video is that, as with anything else in life, you can do this values elicitation work in a real way or an unreal way. Real means ultimately that it's putting you on the path towards wholeness. Wholeness, for simplicity, means a connection to yourself, a connection to life, and a connection to other people. And you can only have that connection if you're willing to face the truth. The opposite of that is fragmentation. Fragmentation means that you are divided within yourself and you're identifying with a false version, aka the ego, because of underlying emotional stuff, shame, guilt, and trauma, and because of social conditioning from the world telling you that you don't deserve to live your real values, or that you're not good enough to live your real values, or any other bullshit like that. Now, when it comes to values, we can fall into the trap that I kind of talked about at the start of the video, where we value surface level things that we think are going to fill the void within us, rather than finding the things within us that have been denied and putting them out into the world. That's a really subtle distinction, but it makes a big, big difference in your life. And the way that I normally describe it to my clients is that you're either running towards something real, which means you figured out the true values within you that are aligned with wholeness and the journey towards growth and expansion that we're all on, because everything in life is changing and evolving. And so if we're not on track with that, if we're not moving with it, then we're always resisting and distorting our relationship with life behind ego. And if you could figure out the values that are aligned with that journey towards wholeness, that natural drive that we all have, then you're going to put yourself in a better position to grow real. Those kind of values are things like truth, because without the truth, you're not going to be able to really dive inside yourself and find anything truly of value. Creativity, because we're all creative when we're real, and creativity allows us to stay curious and work with uncertainty and keep moving and blah, 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 blah. etc. What I'm saying is there are some values that support your growth, other values that you only really value because you're disconnected within yourself because of underlying emotional stuff that I keep talking about, shame, guilt, and trauma. And that's going to show up as things that actually seem attractive to the ego side of you, but they're going to stop you from growing. And that's things like valuing money for the sake of money, not the goal behind the goal that I was talking about earlier with the Lamborghini example, where money is going to give you freedom, it's going to allow you to give more, it's going to allow you to do, the things you've always wanted to do and get experiences. If you just value money for the sake of it, probably there'll be some egotistical thing going on inside you where you think, okay, if I have money, then I'm going to fill the void inside myself, which won't happen, maybe in the short term, but it will be short-lived. I'm going to feel superior to other people, which is going to help me deal with this feeling of shame, blah, blah, blah. The point is, because it's getting long-winded, I'm always getting long-winded. The point is, there are real values that are going to make you real. There are unreal values that are going to make you feel okay in the short term, but they're not really going to change anything. And so that is why you need to go through this process I'm talking about of awareness, acceptance, and action. Realize that if you become aware and accept and act on something real, you get real out. And if you put something unreal in because you're not being real with yourself, you're just going to get unreal back. That's how life works. And so if you can figure out your real values, act on them, life gets a lot better, you'll feel good, and you'll ultimately end up where you need to be, whether you get the surface level goals that you think you need or not, because you know that the goal behind the goal is always a real value. And if you figure that out, embrace it, things are going to get good. So if you want to talk to me about any of this stuff, leave a comment. You can book a virtual coffee on my website. Check out the personality transplant if you want to go deeper. Hope this helped. Take care. Peace.